Some model kits come with a story, and this one is special. This Monogram 53 Corvette was built decades ago and gifted to me when I was a kid. Years of age, smoke damage, and heavy glue made it a real challenge. But instead of buying a new kit, I wanted to restore this one, a true tribute to where it came from. This marks my final build before taking the next steps in my model building journey. At the time, I had bought a cheap airbrush off of Amazon, but I was too intimidated to use it yet. I also didn't record my build processes like I do now, which is probably for the best. This was a long and meticulous project. I started it in November of 2020 and didn't finish it until June 2021, working on it off and on. Before diving into the restoration, I spent a lot of time researching reference images of real 1950s sports cars, like the Corvette and Thunderbird. I wanted to make sure I captured the correct interior details, dashboard layout, and color combinations. I also looked at undercarriage and engine bay photos from other restored classics to ensure I painted and detailed these sections as accurately as possible. While I don't know when exactly this kit was first built, I do know that the model was originally released in the mid to late 1970s. It was probably built sometime in the late 70s or 80s by a neighbor of mine who gifted it to me when I was a kid in the mid 90s. Once I moved out and on my own, I took it with me. As a part of my COVID builds, I took a closer look and realized just how much work it needed. Severely yellowed plastic, once clear parts now cloudy from smoke damage, and a heavy amount of old, thick superglue. Instead of just buying a new one, I wanted to restore this exact kit as a tribute. I tracked down some screenshots of the original instructions, which helped me map out the disassembly. That's when I found out I was missing the hood hinge. This explained why the hood was always a loose, separate piece, and I was also missing part of the exhaust. I attempted to recreate some of these parts, but ultimately it didn't work out. The toughest part was undoing all that superglue. I used Bob Smith Industries Uncure to dissolve the glue and carefully pry apart the pieces, doing my best not to break anything. For the smoke damage, I used rubbing alcohol and cotton balls to clean the body. This alone removed years of grime, but still left the plastic underneath needing a fresh coat of paint. To bring back the shine, I stripped down the old worn chrome using purple power cleaner, leaving the parts in a sealed container overnight. I even tested this on some of the clear parts, which helped restore them significantly. Once cleaned, I repainted the chrome details using Molotow liquid chrome pens. The results were good, but looking back, I would have researched better chrome application techniques. One such technique describes using a glossy black base and spraying chrome on top of that to create a smoother, more polished looking finish. One of the small but interesting details I found during the disassembly was that the rearview mirror had actually been installed backwards. It's something I'd never noticed in all the years I had this kit, and it gave me a little insight into the little quirks of the original build. Just a fun detail that made restoring it even more interesting. I wanted to give the interior a two-tone look to add some realism. I primed the red plastic with white, but the base color still influenced the final look. If I were to do this over, I would use gray primer to first neutralize the red before painting the white over top. The masking on the seats also wasn't as crisp as I had hoped, but given the amount of work involved in this restoration, in the end I was happy with how it turned out. The underbody and engine bay were painted to match the exterior, though the red plastic underneath still slightly affected the final tone, just as it did on the interior. I also repainted the engine components to be a little more accurate, carefully detailing elements like the pedals and battery. For the vinyl roof, I used a darker red primer with enamel paint to create a contrast from the interior, giving it the look of a different material. When I was removing the wheels, one of the pegs snapped off with one. During reassembly, in order to fix this, I drilled a thin hole in both of the broken pieces and inserted a stiff wire, securing it with glue. This reinforced the structure and ensured all four wheels sat evenly, rather than just eyeballing the alignment. This build was a huge learning experience, not just in restoration techniques, but in patience and problem solving. I learned how difficult it is to undo years of glue and damage, how important it is to test out color applications on different plastic bases, and how to reinforce fragile connections like with the wheel pegs. In the end, yellowing and smoke stains were gone, and this build finally looked like a modern model car. But what made this project even more special was sharing it with the family it originally came from. A year later, during a Halloween party, I showed the finished restoration to my neighbor's widow, and she immediately teared up and recognized it. She told me her late husband would have been very happy to see it in such great condition. More recently, I even met their nephew, who still builds model cars and remembers seeing this exact kit being built decades ago. That's what made this project so rewarding, taking something with history and giving it new life. If you've ever taken on a restoration build or have a model kit with a story behind it, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.